But I'll start with the fact that we met in January 2005. Keith Urban was up on stage in Chicago on September 25, 2025, singing a song he had written for his wife, but this time, he switched things up and sang a different woman's name in the lyrics instead. Just 5 days after that, divorce papers got filed after almost 19 years of being married. Their 2 daughters were 17 and 14 years old, but the real trouble had started way earlier, when Keith moved into a separate house and was really struggling to keep everything together. Tonight, we're digging into what actually went down behind the music, the tours, and all those rumors that rocked the country music world. Keith Urban was born in Whangarei, New Zealand on October 26, 1967. His dad, Bob Urban, owned a fabric shop, and his mom, Mary Ann, had Danish family roots. From that Danish side came the first little hint. Her grandfather was a street musician in Copenhagen who passed away with no money. Nobody paid much attention to that connection back then. When Keith was 2, the family moved to a tiny town in Queensland called Caboolture. It had barely 8,000 people. There was no country music on the radio, no local bands, nothing like that. In 1971, Bob bought Keith a ukulele for $12 Australian just to keep him quiet during those super long 14-hour drives across the outback. That choice, meant to hush him up, actually opened a huge door nobody expected. In 1973, when Keith was 6, Bob kinda reluctantly bought him a $50 used Yamaha guitar from a pawn shop in Brisbane. It was supposed to be just a short phase. Instead, Keith started practicing 6 to 8 hours every day. Within weeks, the neighbors started complaining about the noise. By age 8, he was wearing out 3 sets of guitar strings a month, and his hands got so tough that his school teacher thought he might be getting hurt at home. To afford it all, well, the family cut their grocery budget by 30%. His mom started cleaning offices at night to help pay. Keith learned over 200 country songs by heart before he turned 10. His first teacher, John Edney, only charged $3 per lesson, but often didn't take the money, saying Keith was the most naturally talented kid he'd taught in 25 years. From 1975 to 1980, Keith's parents drove him 52,000 kilometers for talent shows and bar gigs all over Queensland. That's more than once around the whole planet. They slept in their car to save cash. In 1978, his mom sold her engagement ring for $180 so he could get a guitar amp. At 8 years old, Keith won $25 at the Tamworth Junior Country Music Festival. That money went right back into groceries. By 10, he was playing shows 4 times every weekend, earning $15 to $30 a night, more than his dad made. He missed 47 days of school in just 1 year. The education department threatened to take legal action, but the gigs kept rolling in. At age 10, Keith started skipping school to play music on the street in Brisbane's Queen Street Mall. He could make up to $40 a day. His parents found out when the school called them. His dad grounded him for 3 months and took his guitar away. So Keith grabbed a tennis racket and practiced the finger positions silently. Then a local newspaper took a photo of him playing on the street and ran it with the headline, "10-year-old country prodigy." That picture got him his first real paid gig for $75. From there, it was obvious music wasn't going anywhere. In 1980, when Keith was 12, he dropped out of Bundaberg High School. His dad was super mad about it. By 13, he joined a local band called The Kids and became their lead guitarist. They played rough pubs in Queensland where grown men were drunk and loud. Keith made $200 a weekend, which is like $600 today. The venues didn't care about his age because he packed the place. He learned how to deal with hecklers before he even started high school. By 15, he entered the 1983 Toyota StarMaker Quest in Tamworth. Out of 1,200 musicians, Keith won with an original song called I that he wrote by himself in his room. The prize was $10,000. He used it to buy a sunburst Fender Stratocaster, his dream guitar. That win got him a recording deal and spots at big Australian festivals. Suddenly, this kid from a town with zero music scene was starting to get known. At 21, Keith and drummer Peter O'Keefe started a band in Sydney called Urban, later known as The Ranch. Between 1988 and 1990, they played over 300 live gigs, 6 nights a week. They put out a self-made cassette called Keith Urban in 1989 and sold 5,000 copies without any record label help. Songs like Never Coming Down became favorites with fans. He was building something, but it wasn't steady. In January 1989, after a gig at the Tamworth Festival, A promoter refused to pay him $800. The fight got heated. A beer bottle got thrown. Police arrested Keith for public intoxication. His mugshot made the front page with the headline, "Rising Stars Fall from Grace." He spent the night in jail. The scandal cost him about $15,000 in canceled gigs and legal fees. He went back to construction work to pay for it all. He later called this the lowest point of his early career. Even with that setback, EMI Australia signed him in 1990 for $50,000. He recorded his first album at Studios 301 in Sydney, the same spot where INXS had recorded. The album's main single, "Only You," reached number 98 on the ARIA charts. Within 8 months, the album sold 35,000 copies and went gold. That brought in $125,000 in royalties. EMI offered a 3-album deal worth $200,000. Keith quit construction work for good. In 1992, Keith moved to Nashville with just $300. He slept on friends' couches. He worked as a session guitarist for $50 an hour. He did open mic nights at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge and dealt with 18 months of rejection. At one point, he was so broke he left a few clothes at a friend's place just to feel like he had a home. He called it a slow-motion move. There was no big break, just hard work. Then in 1994, he put the ranch back together with Peter Clark and Jerry Flowers. They signed with Capitol Records and released an album in 1997. It hit number 34 on Billboard Country. Walk in the Country and Just Some Love made small waves, but the song Desiree got the industry's attention. One song from that album, "Some Days You Gotta Dance," became a huge hit for the Dixie Chicks in 2001, with Keith playing guitar on their version. But in 1998, everything fell apart. Keith overdosed on cocaine during a Dallas show. He got rushed to rehab at Cumberland Heights. The ranch broke up mid-tour. Festival spots got canceled. Capitol Records almost dropped him. The addiction had been growing since the mid-90s, fed by the pressure to make it in American country music. The crash wrecked the band. Keith called it the darkest chapter of his life. In 1999, he started rebuilding. Garth Brooks hired him to play lead guitar on Bellowood from the album Sevens. That one session paid Keith $20,000. The Dixie Chicks brought him in for Sin Wagon. These jobs quietly got him back in the game. They showed he could still play great. Critics liked his work. He was back, but without the big spotlight. Then came his solo big moment. His self-titled album came out in October 1999. The first 2 singles warmed up the charts. But on February 24, 2001, "But for the Grace of God" hit number 1. It stayed there for a week and sold over 1 million copies. That song was co-written with 2 members of the Go-Go's. A weird pick for country, but it worked. The album went platinum by 2003. It got him the 2001 CMA Horizon Award and top new male vocalist at the Academy of Country Music Awards. The comeback was done. The kid who practiced 6 hours a day in a tiny town with no country music had finally made it big. In October 2002, Keith Urban put out an album called Golden Road. It didn't just show up quietly, it exploded. Within days, it hit number 2 on the Billboard Country chart. One track, "Somebody Like You," stayed at number 1 on country radio for 6 straight weeks and got to number 23 on the Hot 100. But even more, Billboard later named it the top country song of the whole 2000s decade by late 2005. The album went triple platinum in the U.S. alone, meaning over 3 million copies sold. It wasn't just one hit either. 4 songs from Golden Road crushed the charts. "Somebody Like You," "Who Wouldn't Want to Be Me," and "You'll Think of Me" all hit number 1. "Raining on Sunday" got close too, reaching number 3. This wasn't just a lucky break for Urban, it was the start of his big era. His name started playing on mainstream radio, not just country stations. This was also the first time he worked with producer Dan Huff, who would help shape his sound for years to come. But behind the scenes, things were rough. While he was enjoying all this success, Urban's personal life was falling apart. During this time, he ended a long, messy relationship with Laura Sigler, a veterinary technician he had dated on and off for years. They were even engaged in 2001, but by 2002 it was over. There were whispers about cheating, and Sigler spoke out in interviews later. She said the drugs had dragged their relationship to really bad places. She called Urban probably the darkest part of her past and said he had lots of flings. In her words, his addictive personality would make it hard for him to ever truly make someone happy. While nothing was officially confirmed about any lawsuit, There were rumors back then of a $500,000 legal fight with a former manager. No details hit the news, but people in the industry whispered about closed-door battles. Right when Urban was rising fastest, Golden Road sold over 3.27 million copies across the US, Canada, and Australia. It hit platinum in Australia with 70,000 sales, double platinum in Canada with 200,000, and triple platinum in the US. After the album took off, Urban went on his first big arena tour in 2003. This was a huge change. No more small clubs or bars. Now it was massive stages, full seats, and huge crowds. Somebody Like You became his first gold-certified single. You'll Think of Me did the same and even won him a Grammy for Best Male Country Vocal Performance. There's something else that shaped Urban's path way before Golden Road. In 1988, back in Australia, he went to a John Mellencamp concert on the Lonesome Jubilee Tour. He said it felt like getting struck by lightning. It wasn't just that he enjoyed it, it changed how he thought about music. Urban later said, "I didn't walk away thinking I want to do that. I walked away feeling I get it." From that moment, he started mixing everything he loved, country, rock, storytelling, into his own style. Over the years, he covered Mellencamp songs like Jack and Diane and Hurt So Good. In 2015, the two performed Pink Houses together on national TV. That same year, Urban released John Cougar, John Deere, John 3:16, a direct nod to Mellencamp's influence. Raining on Sunday, one of the standout tracks from Golden Road, wasn't even Urban's song at first. It was written and recorded by Radney Foster in 1998. Foster's version had backing vocals from Darius Rucker. Urban told Foster he loved the album and was going to record the track for his own record. It ended up hitting number 3 on the charts. Around this time, Urban was dealing with some serious mental health issues. Though no official interviews say he wrote or recorded it during a depressive episode, the timeline matches what we know, that in the early 2000s he was fighting substance abuse and recovering from a toxic breakup. The song's themes, quiet, shelter, searching for peace, hit even harder with that background. Just 2 years later, in September 2004, Urban released his 4th album, Be Here. This one started at number 1 on the Billboard Country chart. It didn't slow down after that. Be Here sold over 4 million copies, becoming his best-selling album ever. Days Go By, the lead single, stayed at number 1 for 4 weeks and reached number 31 on the Hot 100. It got certified gold quick. The whole album went gold and then platinum in just 6 weeks after release. Urban co-produced it with Dan Huff again and wrote or co-wrote 9 of the 13 songs himself. It won him 3 ACM awards, Male Vocalist of the Year, Album of the Year, and Album of the Year Producer. But right when his star was shining brightest, disaster hit in 2005. Urban got a large nodule on his vocal cords. His doctor said it was like a callus from years of singing all the time. He had to have emergency laser surgery in Boston. The same specialist who worked on John Mayer did it. Urban couldn't speak for 3 weeks after, not even a whisper. He admitted he slipped and spoke a couple times during recovery, and the weird sounds scared him. He was terrified that singing in his sleep might hurt his voice. He even emailed his surgeon in a panic after dreaming he was performing You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. But the surgery worked. When he came back to the stage to sing Making Memories of Us at the 2005 Grammys, he said it felt like an artery suddenly getting unblocked. Then came Tonight I Wanna Cry. The song climbed to number 2 on the country chart and hit number 36 on the Hot 100. It went platinum and connected deeply with people. In a honest Rolling Stone interview, Urban said the song came from a raw place, a breakup in 2003, and the heavy feelings during his early tries at staying sober. His ex said something that crushed him. The novelty of you has worn off. That cut deep. He said it sent him into a spiral. More drinking, more drugs. He fell back hard into cocaine and ecstasy, saying the whole late 90s were a dark blur. He admitted that when he wasn't on stage, he felt like an alien. Drugs were how he coped with Nashville's tough music industry pressure. Even with all that, 2005 was the year he got his first CMA nomination for Entertainer of the Year and won it on his first try. That same year, You'll Think of Me from Golden Road won him another Grammy. There were rumors he worked on demo sessions for Carrie Underwood's Jesus Take the Wheel around this time, though nothing solid backs it up. What is confirmed is that Be Here had 5 top 5 singles, including 3 number-1 hits: Days Go By, Making Memories of Us, and Better Life, plus 2 more that got close. His tour for Be Here made over $20 million from just 39 shows, putting him in Billboard's top 25 tours for the first time in 2006. But as the spotlight got brighter, his inner world fell apart again after marrying Nicole Kidman in June 2006. Urban relapsed during a European tour. It was so bad that Kidman had to set up an intervention. He later said, "I caused the implosion of my fresh marriage. It survived, but it's a miracle it did." The pressure of success and being newly married to a huge celebrity pushed him over the edge. He said, "One can never let one's guard down on recovery, and I'm afraid that I have." The next album, Love, Pain, The Whole Crazy Thing, came out in November 2006 and hit #1 on the Billboard 200. It sold over 1 million copies. The big hit from that record was Stupid Boy, which won him a Grammy in 2008. But when he recorded that album, Urban was fighting a major relapse. Kidman was away filming in Rome, and Urban was alone in their Nashville home. Old habits returned. On October 19, 2006, Kidman came home and found drugs in the house. That night, she set up the intervention that saved his life. Urban checked into the Betty Ford Center the same day, canceling a planned CMA performance and putting all album promo on hold. I Told You So became one of the album's standout tracks, hitting #2 on the country chart in 2007. Urban co-wrote it during a rough patch in his new marriage and admitted that time was just crazy. The album pushed limits. Urban and producer Dan Huff went for a rock-influenced sound. There were pipes, tin whistles, ukes, instruments you hardly ever heard on country radio. It was experimental, raw, and intense. The album sold over 1 million copies in its first week, but the recording sessions were tough. Urban was still recovering and argued with people over creative stuff. At one point, he fired his whole band during rehearsals for the 2007 tour. The firing came after big fights about arrangements and musical direction. He had to rehire fast just to keep the tour going. Once in a Lifetime had already broken records by debuting at #17, the highest debuting country single in Billboard's 62-year history at that time, but it never hit #1, stopping at #6. Urban later said he wrote the song for Kidman when she was scared to marry him. She once told him, "It's a long shot," and that stuck with him. That same year, Every Boat Die came out as the 4th single. It reached #4 and was super personal. It was a thank you to Kidman and everyone who helped him through recovery. For the first time ever, she joined him on tour. That 2008 tour with Carrie Underwood opening was one of the top-grossing country tours of the year. When Keith Urban released his 8th studio album on September 10, 2013, it didn't just surprise fans. It split the country music world in half. Fuse went straight to #1 on the Billboard country charts and hit platinum in months. But it wasn't the success that got people talking. It was the sound. The lead single, Cop Car, didn't sound like country at all. It had EDM drops, electronic beats, and touches from Rick Rubin, the hip-hop producer famous for Jay-Z and Red Hot Chili Peppers. The backlash from country fans who liked things traditional was quick and loud. But what most people didn't know was that the version they heard was actually toned down. Urban had recorded even wilder takes that didn't make the final album. The message was clear. He wasn't trying to fit in. He was breaking the rules on purpose. The controversy got bigger a year later. In 2014, Urban's collaboration with rising star Kelsea Ballerini on Raise 'Em Up turned into more than just a hit. The song hit #1, but backstage gossip got louder. That summer, Australia's Woman's Day magazine ran photos of Ballerini leaving Urban's tour bus looking super happy. She was just the opening act. But some tabloids ran with it anyway. They pushed stories that something more was going on. Sources said she hung around his trailer, acting giddy after late nights on the bus. At the same time, Urban's wife, Nicole Kidman, was already rumored to be getting suspicious. Jealousy had always quietly been part of their marriage. Now, it was out in the open. Both Urban and Ballerini denied it all, but the timing wasn't helpful. Urban's name got dragged into gossip that didn't go away fast. Then came 2016. Urban released Ripcord on May 6th, and it became his biggest commercial win yet. #1 debut. Platinum certified and full of fresh ideas. Break on Me was recorded using acoustic loops in his Nashville home studio, giving it a close, personal feel that still became a big hit. Wasted Time won the CMA Single of the Year, and the live shows brought something totally new. Nathan Barlow brought out the Phantom, a custom setup with 4 iPads and a mixing board to trigger album samples during performances. For country music, that tech was brand new. The crowd didn't just hear songs, they heard the exact studio versions played live in real time. Urban wasn't just making music, he was finding new ways to share it. But behind the tech and awards, things were stressful. Just before the Ripcord World Tour started, Urban fired his longtime drummer. It happened in rehearsals over arguments about tempo. That wasn't a total shock to people close to the band. Urban had a reputation. He wanted everything perfect, down to every beat. And he wanted someone who could play drums, run samples, and handle keys all at once. That's why he brought in Barlow. The Oceania part of the tour, co-headlined with Carrie Underwood, made over $5.7 million across 6 shows in Australia. Overall, the tour brought in $33.6 million and drew more than 612,000 fans. But those big numbers hid what was really going on backstage. The long rehearsal hours, the pressure, the band changes, it all came from a perfectionism that didn't allow mistakes. In 2017, Urban and Underwood released The Fighter, and it hit number 1. The story behind it was more personal than most knew. Urban wrote it with Busby in London and later said the lyrics came from the early days of his marriage to Kidman, but also about their daughter, Faith Margaret, born via surrogate in 2010. Urban wanted the song to show what it means to protect the people you love. To get Underwood's vocals, Busby rearranged Urban's whole video shoot schedule because she only had one free day in St. Louis. The song became triple platinum in the U.S., and quadruple platinum in Australia. Sadly, Busby died of brain cancer in 2019, making this one of his last big works. The song turned into more than a hit. It became a memory. Urban's next album, Graffiti You, came out on April 27, 2018, and it started strong, hitting number 1 on the country albums chart, but dropped off quick. First week sales were 137,000 copies, but by week 2, it fell to number 18 on Billboard 200 with just 17,000 sales. Female, the Me Too-inspired lead single, stopped at number 12, ending a 2-decade run of top 10 hits. Never Comin' Down didn't do better, peaking at number 18. Critics didn't like the album. Rolling Stone gave it 2.5 stars and said Urban seemed lost when trying new things. By July 2019, the album had sold only 224,000 copies in the U.S. and barely hit gold certification. It was his weakest sales in over 10 years. At the same time, things at home weren't good either. Urban gave interviews hinting at tension with Kidman's schedule on Big Little Lies, and friends later confirmed they'd been living apart since mid-2018. He moved into a separate place. The lyrics in Never Comin' Down weren't just about distance, they were about their distance. When Kidman filed for divorce on September 30th, 2025, citing irreconcilable differences, the paperwork pointed to problems going back to this exact time. Everything was coming apart, his music career and his marriage at the same time. Then came 2020. The pandemic shut everything down and Urban recorded a whole album from home. The Speed of Now, Part 1 came out on September 18th and still hit number 1 on the country chart and number 7 on Billboard 200. God Whispered Your Name peaked at number 3 and got a Grammy nomination. Urban had musicians record their parts separately and then put it all together in Nashville. He live-streamed shows, joined the One World, Together at Home Special, and covered Steve Winwood's Higher Love. The album won highest-selling album at the 2021 Queensland Music Awards, but the cost was huge. His tour got canceled. He lost $10 million. The losses covered tickets, production, and deposits. He quietly went back to online AA meetings to keep himself steady. His whole touring setup had to be rebuilt from nothing, using drive-in concerts and virtual shows just to stay afloat. His losses were some of the biggest for any country artist then. The collaboration with Post Malone in 2021 changed things again. One Too Many hit number 1, and crossed 1 billion Spotify streams by 2023. But Urban said it wasn't about chasing fame that made him say yes. It was loneliness. He was stuck at home with growing tension and creative blocks and just needed someone to create with. The song was recorded remotely. Malone in LA, Urban in Nashville. They never met, and the lyrics about drinking alone and relationship strain hit way too close to home. The success made Urban question a lot. Country fans criticized him again for leaving the genre behind, and while his team pushed for more pop and hip-hop features, Urban said no. He already knew the cost was high, and it had taken more than streams could give back. In September 2024, Urban released High. It debuted at number 14 on the country charts. Messed Up As Me hit number 1 and got over 500 million streams. The album had 12 tracks, including a duet with Lainey Wilson. 4 songs were saved from a scrapped project called 615, The Re. Scent were what Urban called cheeseburgers. High energy, carefree, euphoric. Critics said it was his most personal and varied work in years. But behind the scenes, his personal life was falling apart. Kidman filed for divorce on September 30th, 2025, and sources said she had been trying to save the marriage for a long time before that. They had celebrated their anniversary in June. By the end of September, it was done. They had been married almost 19 years. Their daughters were 17 and 14. Kidman got custody. Urban kept touring. The High and Alive World Tour kicked off just 5 days before the divorce filing, on September 25, 2025, at the United Center in Chicago. Urban played 90 minutes of music, old hits, new songs, no wedding ring. Industry people guessed the tour could make $60 million. He shared the stage with Chase Matthew, Alana Springsteen, and Carly Scott Collins. Urban said what he loved most was watching people forget their stress for a bit and just feel alive. But fans spotted something else. During the show, Urban changed the lyrics of The Fighter. Once written for Kidman, he swapped in the name Maggie during the chorus. Maggie Baugh was his 25-year-old guitarist. The crowd noticed it. So did Instagram. Baugh posted the clip with eye emojis. Her dad told reporters it was all about music, no dating. But then she missed the next show, and Urban dropped The Fighter from the set list completely. Even with all that, Urban kept pushing forward. In October 2025, he talked on a Nashville radio show about his 14 years of sobriety and how his daughters were his anchor. He spoke about how Kidman and his friends had stepped in back in 2006, right after their wedding, and got him into rehab. He said it saved his life. He said music was still the one thing that grounded,